commercially released records, 1979 for hip hop, it's, King Tim and the Fatback Band, Personality Jock, and then Rapper's Delight, Sugar Hill Gang, right? 1979. Rap was happening before that, for sure, for years before that. Um, but in that record, that seminal record, there is ghostwriting in that record for sure. Right? That's not to diss. That's not hyperbole. That's not somebody pulling shit out their ass. That's not somebody trying to win an argument about Now and Drake or prove a point. It doesn't, to me, it's not a point to defend Drake. What you may have missed is the folks, the Thought Crimes people, were saying that they got history of this MC quote unquote metric that goes back to Rakim. Rakim's in the 80s, just to be clear. Goes back that, okay, as if this didn't exist, as this some new shit, and that this has always been frowned upon, and that this is not a part of the culture, and if you're doing that, you're not an MC. This they words. Ghostwriting eliminates you from being in the canon. And if that's the case, and then when we can parcel it to say, well, who's not an MC and who's not this, but being an MC and a rapper and a writer are three different categories. They're not the same. They're not the same. There's MCs who don't write their raps. There's
Can we really get into this then? Because I disagree with so much of this, but I
listen,
want you
listen.
to still
I'm,
be able to
I'm gonna
say what you're gonna
give
say.
my citations because I'm not speaking for me.
Okay.
Right? There's a book. It's called Collective Participation and Audience Engagement in Rap Music by David Diallo. French guy, teaches rap at the University, I think, of Bordeaux. Okay, y'all go get that. The whole book is about rap and specifically about crowd participation. And so he has interviews with all of the OGs, the people who actually wrote Rapper's Delight, right? And he has a very, very deep perspective. And it's some of it's subjective, but most I hesitate to say it's subjective because it's from the lips of the people who invented emceeing. This ain't me. This ain't you, Showtime. This ain't Drake. This ain't the Thought Crime people. This ain't even Diallo. This ain't even the dude who wrote this book. He's interviewing people who we can definitively say invented emceeing. And they're saying there's a separation between emceeing and rapping and writing. There's writers who can't rap, but they can write raps, but they can't rap. They would write the raps for the people who could MC. And because everything was live back then, there was no recording. If you couldn't perform, it didn't matter. And he goes through the chat, and this is talking to you a little bit, ill. It started live. Remember, there were no that niggas couldn't get into studios. Once technology came in from those good folks, our Japanese friends, who were creating all this equipment that made it smaller and more affordable for people to get into the studio and actually record, then it became a space where people who couldn't perform live, who were really good at rapping, because they couldn't operate in those constraints of performing live for whatever reason, stage fright, their voice, their energy levels, whatever it is. But when they got into the studio and all those constraints were taken off, then they were able to do what they were doing best. And then it became the age of the rapper. And because you were in the studio and recording overtook, say, live performances, or getting live performances was a little bit difficult to do. But then it became about how do we translate the live performance into the recorded performance so that when you drove around in your car or at your block party or at your house or wherever it was, they were trying to give you the live experience of that live performance in your car. Because there's no reason, ask yourself this question. Why would you be listening to a rap record that's saying, hey, everybody put your hands in the air? Ain't nobody in the car with you. If you put your hands in there, you're going to fucking crash. Who are they talking to? Professor Diallo lays out, they're taking the live performance and all of those elements which made it live and trying to translate it into a recorded studio space. Once guys started to get into the studio, they realized like all those tropes and again, the name of this book is Collective Participation and Audience Engagement in Rap Music. That's the name of the book. That's not the description. That's the name of that bitch. Once they got into the studio and realized that so he maps out all of the tropes and does it very systematically of all of the tropes, all of the language that was used, the throw your hands in the air, wave them like you just don't care. He identifies where they came from, what they were used for, and as people started to use them in a live context, when they got into the studio space, it was like, well, we don't really need to do that anymore because now we got freedom to talk about and do something else. So every rap record that's in the studio doesn't need to have wave your hands in the air because nobody's there to wave the fucking hands. So you can use that space and that time, because again, studio time is expensive, to focus on something else, or it allows you to focus and talk about other things. Then it became the age of the rapper. We hear remnants of it today, right? Where it's like, yo, what's up, y'all? Yo, let me tell you, because you kind of rappers kind of had to feel to in order to migrate from the live stage to the studio, people kind of invented this ghost audience. In some cases, people would actually bring in, even and Ti does this in some of his recording sessions. He'll just bring the strippers to the studio, right? And he'll record, like, this is no bullshit, and people will be in the studio with people recording, doing what they do because they want to make sure that the record is it's for other people to dance to or to vibe to, right? But outside of that, people would have to bring, quote unquote, the audience with them. So what they would have to imagine that there's an audience. So I have to think about you being in your car, right? I'm recording in a certain way where it goes from me yelling into a microphone to fill up a stadium to having a very intimate conversation with one person. But it needs to be depersonalized and generalized enough so that it reaches everybody. So it has to have a certain universal appeal. But at the beginning of the day, nobody's in the studio. So how do you do that? So he walks through some of the ideas and the thought processes that rappers, when they went into the studio, was like, okay, how do we bring in these different kind of pieces and parts? Everything that I just said, apart from a few, maybe 2 or 3%, which is me adding in my kind of logic to fill out the idea, is from this book. I don't fuck with that book. The book is filled with interviews from people who actually started rap and started hip hop. So this ain't me. Right? That ghostwriting part, if you're gonna use that, and you more than welcome to use it. I'm not, you use it. If you want to use that as a metric to say that this dude ain't an MC under your terms, I need you to be able to explain to me the history of ghostwriting and rap. If you can't do that, whether you agree with it or disagree with anything I just said or anything that this book says or anything that the inventors of rap said, because you feel like fuck them niggas. Like, to your point, Showtime, when did we get lost? What did we lose?